For USCFootball.com, I'm Keely Eure here with Shotgun Spratling for instant analysis of USC's Tuesday practice of Washington State Week. Now, Shotgun, this was the first open practice of the Donté Williams era. He is now USC's interim head coach, and I don't think we were expecting huge changes, but we did see some differences in practice today. What did you see?
Yeah, a little bit of differences as far as the practice schedule. Not a ton of changes, and you wouldn't expect him to completely overhaul a practice schedule, but a little bit more scout work. It looked like the players that we talked to said that there was a little bit more competition is something that they noticed. But really the biggest difference was just Donté Williams himself. Him walking around the practice, and he had a very head coach stance as he walked with his hands behind his back, kind of his chest puffed out a little bit, but spending a ton of time watching the offense. And he said, it's a little bit different for me cheering when the offense makes a nice play, a nice catch. But he said one of the biggest things is he's trying to see the personnel from the offensive side, but also learn the verbiage on the offensive side. He said it's one thing to be going up against the offense during practice, but it's much different when you're trying to learn all their calls and learn everything that way. So he spent a little bit more time kind of wandering around. He did spend some time with the cornerbacks and some of the DBs. There's a little bit of a difference now with the DBs and how they're kind of split up. Initially, we saw Aaron Williams, who's a grad assistant, who had been working underneath Donté Williams. He was split with the cornerbacks, while Donté had Chris Steele and Greg Johnson and a couple other guys, and Craig Nivar had the safeties. Then we saw Chris Steele and Greg Johnson go with Nivar. So it's a little bit different than the mix was previously. Maybe they're just kind of rotating those guys around a little bit as they go through it, rather than Craig Nivar just taking over as a DB's coach, which is one of the things I was wondering what would happen.
Yeah.
They're still a little bit, they're split up with the cornerbacks and safeties, but they are kind of mixing and matching a little bit. So that's a little bit different. But besides that, not a ton of changes there. Michael Hutchings was officially named the linebackers coach, but he's basically still doing the same thing that he was doing under Todd Orlando previously. So congratulations to him, by the way, a guy that we've covered for basically his entire career, from De La Salle to USC, and through the coaching ranks now as well. So congratulations there, well deserved. And we'll see if there's any changes as it progresses. It's basically 48 hours have elapsed, if even that. So 36 hours. So not going to make any immediate changes. And that's something Donté said last night when he was on Trojans Live. He's like, he's not going to make a bunch of wholesale changes immediately, but I think accountability, listening to the players and what they talked about when we talked to them, we talked to 3 of the 4 captains, is that accountability has to be, taken, is something that's going to be a little bit more serious, it seems like. And that's the way they said that they can turn the season around from 1-1 to having a very good season, is, the accountability to hold each other to the highest standard. And I think Donté Williams is going to bring that. And because he's so respected in the locker room from so many people, I think that there's the potential where USC does kind of turn around the culture where, we've heard some stuff that, wasn't the best after that Stanford game.
Mm-hmm. Ben Griffith said that it's not often in sport that you get a reset button, and they're kind of treating it as such. But as Shotgun alluded to, it was an interesting media availability. We got to talk to Donté Williams, athletic director Mike Bohn, and then 3 of the 4 captains. What did you take away from Donté Williams' media availability? It was kind of his first real go at being a head coach and being in front of so much media today.
Yeah, a lot of people out, which is normally the case when big news happens at USC. But, he talked on Trojans Live last night, very similar message. Obviously, he's not being peppered with the same type of questions from a school media run program that they have there, with the local media, some national media people as well in attendance, different types of questions, but same message. He said he'll want to go 1-0 today. Not focused on just Saturday, not focused on this season in total, but let's focus on today, win today basically, and go 1-0 on the day. And he talked about how they've got to cut out the dumb penalties, dumb mistakes that they had made, and referencing some of those penalties. He was asked about that today. He said, whether it's we got to take a guy out for a play or a quarter or a half or even a full game, to get the message across that those mistakes, those type of penalties, and especially the 15-yard varieties that after the whistle, those type of things, we've got to cut those out. So, it seems like accountability is going to be there even more so than it was in the past, that, if you do something, you're going to be punished for it in some form or fashion. So I think it's going to be interesting with him on the sideline now. A little bit of change there. He said, Michael Hutchings will be, I believe, up in the booth. They'll have one grad assistant that will go up in the booth as well from the sideline. But besides that, pretty much the same there. So we'll see if they're is a progression of changes, or if the big thing is just, focusing on the little mistakes and focusing on those details and that accountability, if that's the big change for USC.
It's still early, so we'll definitely keep an eye out for that. But like I said, we got to talk to Mike Bohn, and he said USC will conduct a national search, an expansive search, so it won't be like the searchers we've seen before in USC's past. What did you take away from his media availability?
I thought the most interesting thing is, no one really broke this story. This came out when they released the Mike Bohn release, and he said it was really important to them to talk to the players first. And I really respect that, even though we would love to have broken the story as journalists. But I really respect the fact that they went into a meeting. Clay Helton spoke, Mike Bohn spoke, and Donté Williams. All three of them spoke to the team, let the team know firsthand. They didn't, call a meeting on Sunday or anything. And Mike Bohn said that, part of the reason why they waited until Monday is that he didn't want to make an emotional decision. He said he doesn't believe in that, so he wanted to let the emotions of a late Saturday night game pass, and then on Monday they went to work and made a decision then. But there wasn't a meeting call. They didn't bring everyone up, and everyone's wondering what's going on.
Yeah.
Instead, they waited till USC had a team meeting, and then they went in there and addressed it. And Donté Williams said he found out right before the meeting, so he didn't have any clue. So it was really in-house, and I respect that to let the players know, so they're not finding out over Twitter or over text or whatnot, which is normally what happens these days when guys are free agents or whatever, how they sign, they find out from Twitter and everything, or traded or whatnot. So for the kids, I think that was the best thing. And he talked about, national search. They're going to look at it. They're going to take their time with it. They know that they have the length of the season basically to look at all the candidates. So they're going to take their time with that, be a national. Talked a lot about leadership. That was probably the number one word that he used when describing the position. And he listed a number of qualities, being able to recruit and all these different things that you want. And all these are kind of catchphrase topics, but leadership is a big one. And I think that's the thing that really stands out, that he mentioned it multiple times, and that's the thing I think they're looking for going forward is, that accountability again, but that all starts at the top.
Given the way that Clay Helton was hired, both Donté Williams and Mike Bohn were asked about the fact that Donté Williams is an interim head coach and he has 10 games ahead of him. What does that mean for maybe his prospects of becoming USC's permanent head coach? But both of them said they're in the moment. It's day one and they're going to wait on it. But what do you take away from the kind of vague answers we got?
Hey, if Donté Williams goes 10-0 during the regular season, wins the Pac-12 championship, makes it into a playoff, and somehow wins a national championship, I think he'll probably be named head coach. I'm going to say that. So there is a possibility, but I think that they're saying, let's just slow the brakes on even putting that out there right now. Let's focus on a day, and I think that's the right way to approach it, especially for Donté. Like, let's not be looking at that end goal. Let's focus on a day, and that's how you get to those end goals, as you accomplish the small goals along the way. So I think it's important for him to just be like, I'm not worried about that. We'll see if something like that happens down the road, but let's focus on first Washington State, because you turn around from a very late game on Saturday night. You're going to travel this week, so it's a shorter week as far as practices go there. They have an early game on Saturday. So a little bit of a compact schedule there, especially with all this news that's happening. So I think he really wants to let's hone in, and especially after the way they gave up some big passing yardage and his cornerback group in particular against Stanford. Now you're going to be facing a 5-wide attack from Washington State. So I think he's worried about what's going to happen on the field more than what's going to happen in 3 months.
Which is probably a good thing, because I think all of us are kind of like, oh, right, there's a game on Saturday. USC is going to travel to its first road game. And that was interesting seeing the jersey switch when USC plays an away team, or when they are the away team, the offense wears white jerseys. So we were kind of a little confused after seeing red jerseys for 6 weeks.
Whoa. You and Chris Trevino were a little confused.
I'm loving you in, Chuck, and we were confused. But what did you take away from practice, the actual football part?
One good thing, seeing Ishmael Shropshire back in a uniform, back out there. Nick Figueroa was back in a uniform. So a couple of injury notes there with those guys being back. We didn't see anyone new added to the list. Drake London, didn't finish the game. He missed the last drive after the touchdown catch and the hard hit on the ground. But he was back out there. Was limping a little bit, still favoring that ankle a little bit, it seems like. So, we'll be keeping an eye on that one. But pretty much everyone was back that we expected to be back, and to see Shropshire back in pads at least and doing some stuff is another positive moving forward. Salamatula Alapupu, he played in the game on Saturday and was back at practice today, so you can start getting a little bit excited about the potential of seeing Solomon on the field. I know I've always tried to quell that until we get a full week of practice and getting him in the game. I think that's great to see him back out there. So that was the big thing. I think you're going to see USC probably have to play some. When they played them last year, there was a lot of dime, their nickel is their normal most used defense. You're going to see some dime. You maybe even see some quarter. That's something they showed last week. So, it's going to be on those DBs to have a big week when they're facing that type of passing attack. So we'll see how they try to attack it. Whether we see someone like move down into the box like Talanoa did last year against Washington State. So there could be some wrinkles there. We'll see what kind of plays out on Saturday when they get there. But yeah, a lot of DB drills because that you're going to see a lot of passes on Saturday.
I know there's a lot of clamoring on social media. Well, if Donté Williams becomes interim head coach, does this mean the air raid is gone? And we definitely didn't see that in practice today. Just confirm we didn't see any major changes on offense.
No, and I think that's the thing when Donté says, I've got to go over and spend more time on the offensive side because I need to learn the verbiage. I need to learn, the play calls and the checks and everything and learn the personnel in kind of a different way because he's going to have more input on, should this guy be on the field or not? And telling, a position coach saying, like, we need to get this guy involved a little bit more. We need to run a special play or a special package to get this guy involved. He's got to learn those guys in a little bit different way. It's just, it's a different prism to kind of look through to see those players as a head coach versus a position coach on the other side of the ball. But, no major changes. The offense, and especially this week, I think it's going to be pretty much the same thing. You're going to see the same I think you'll see the same players. I don't think there'll be any major changes this week. Maybe going forward, when they come back home next week against Oregon State, maybe there's some differences there. But we'll keep an eye on Saturday and see what the case is.
Yeah, it just seems like surviving the transition right now is the main goal. But any final thoughts, Shotgun, before we wrap this one up?
No, I love the stadium lighting behind us that makes us...
We're working out the nighttime instant process.
But, I think it was an interesting day just to see a ton of media there, but to see how Donté just kind of... how he attacked practice. I thought that was going to be the most interesting thing. Would I see him with his arm around Graham Harrell or Clay McGuire? And, no, you're not going to see that. But he was talking with the players, and kind of just moving around the field and back and forth. He pulled the offensive line at one point, which is a little bit different for a drill on the defensive side. So there's some small, subtle changes, and we'll see if he continues to kind of put his imprint as we go forward. But to start with, small things. And for them, I think the big thing is correcting those small mistakes from Saturday that turned into really big point spread. But if they can correct some small mistakes, then they can start moving in the right direction and create some momentum going forward.
Alrighty, that's going to wrap it up for USC's Tuesday practice of Washington State Week. For Shotgun Spratling, I'm Keely Eure. For more, check out uscfootball.com.